everyone, thanks so much for joining me today. My name is Cynthia, and today I'm making a mini journal from start to finish. These are just some paper scraps that I've collected that I want to use to make some pages in the journal. And here you see me starting to assemble little bits and pieces to create those pages. So I'm just using some masking tape to bind together, I guess, these two pieces of paper that are too small to be folded. And the whole idea behind this journal is to create a journal in which I can use some of those paper scraps that I've been hoarding, that I have not been using, and that are simply piling up in the little containers I have for them. So I encourage you, if you also have a ton of paper scraps that you're not using, and even those tiny little pieces, that's really what I did this for. Essentially, I want to collage in there and simply put some quotes. Oh yeah, I just showed you that candle. If you're wondering what's on my finger, I burnt my finger. I was trying to light a candle, and it's a wood wick, and the wood popped, and the little piece landed on my finger and burnt me. So, you know, that's I guess that's what happens when you love to burn candles. I don't know. So here I'm just trimming some of the pages and just working through my little stash. I picked mainly pages that were neutral tone or with some blue, and I'm just folding them differently and trying to make them work as good as possible. I'm creating some secret pockets as I am right here with some double-sided tape, and just using some washi to make sure that the rest of that page is kind of glued together, and just trimming off some excess. But I don't know about you, but sometimes I use washi tape, but I don't use the whole thing the whole piece, especially with the really wide washi. Sometimes I don't want it to be that wide. So this was actually a piece of washi tape that was stuck to my desk, and so I was like, well, that's also a scrap. So I'm just trying to use as much as I can in terms of scraps. And I'm just trimming some more. I also have these pages from a book that I have that has really beautiful flower illustrations in there, but on one side is the information about the flowers, which is not as interesting to me, I guess. So I figured, well, rather than waste the rest of these pages, I can reuse them that way and simply collage onto them, since they're really sturdy paper. So I'm just assembling my mini signature and checking how full that makes the journal be. But I think I can add quite a bit more in there, so I just do that. Now, I'm pretty happy with how many pages that I have, but a few of my pages have some blank spaces, so I want to use more of my scraps to cover the white spaces. So here I'm just trimming down some pieces to glue them onto the white spaces. And I really like to use my ruler to cut things when I can. When what I want to cut is a little bit smaller, it is a little bit harder, I find, to cut with the the stapler to cut with my rulers, so I just use the scissors. But I had this one here was cut a little bit crooked, so I just added a piece of washi tape to cover that little bit missing. And I'm just pressing down everything, making sure it's glued together well and folding in it nicely. I'd love to know if some of you have ideas on how you like to use your scraps, and do you make yourself mini journals, and if you do you use them for scraps or do you use them in another way? I just am always looking for new ideas on how to use my little paper scraps. So here I'm just moving on to the next blank space, and I'm just gluing down a piece of lined doodle paper and just adding a tiny other bit, and I'll just trim off the excess. Now that all my pages are covered in some sort of pattern or interesting paper, I'm just trying to make my signature, just alternating patterns and sizes of the papers, and just taking a look at what that looks like in the cover. But a couple of those pages were a little bit too big, so I have to trim them. Now that I'm happy with how that looks, I'm just clipping it together and setting it to the side so that I can work on the cover. I am bringing it back out. I was debating between two fabrics. I really loved the fabric on the right, but I could see myself using it in more projects, so I ended up going with the fabric on the left that has the gray tones and blue tones. It also really went with most of the papers I had picked out, so I just settled for this one. I also really like the way that flower looked in the corner. So I just hand stitched the fabric onto the card stock, and I did that off camera, but it was, I mean, it's very self-explanatory. I'll show you in just a moment here. You can see my slow stitching just all around. So now, of course, I want to cover the inside, and I just use another one of those papers that has information about flowers. I thought it just worked perfectly fine for this, and it kept it simple, but the paper is also a little bit thicker, so I thought it was a good option to put inside there. And I'm just pressing that down. I used a clear glue, just that sticky glue I got at the Dollar Tree. It works fine for me, so I'm happy with it. And now I can move back into my book pages, and I'm just adding some washi where need be, and making sure that my pages are going to be aligned in the way that I want, as I will be binding them into the cover. So I'm just aligning them carefully and making sure that they're facing the right way. So I can see here I have that pocket at the top, and same thing for this one, the pockets weren't facing the right way. So now that that's done, I'm just clipping them together with some paper clips, and I will be able to bind it into the cover that I've made. Since this is such a small little book, you could do simply 2 holes, but I wanted to use 3. So here you see me using the tie part of my robe, which is what I always am wearing when I'm at home, and I just help myself to push the needle in because it can be a little bit difficult and it hurts. So I'll use often just a thick piece of fabric to help me push it down. And I'm just binding the same way that I bind my usual book, so out the middle, back in the top, back out the middle, and back in through the bottom, and I just tie it in the middle section. And I just do a few knots. So here's my tiny mini journal. I do want to add some tabs, some ruffles. I'm just kind of bending it back in the way that I want it. I am also going to be adding a closure, so I just added one eyelet at the front, and I'm just going to use a piece of sari silk to do the closure and be able to wrap it around the journal and close it that way. now the step that I'm taking is adding some journaling cards into the pockets that I've made. But I also want to add a little pocket at the front, and this little scrap of fabric was just really cute, and the colors of the fabric really matched the rest that I had, like the different papers that I had selected. So I just used a little bit of glue to secure that onto the front page, and I'm using some little tags from a digital kit from Dust of Roses, and I'm just gonna back them with this digital ledger paper, also from Dust of Roses, and I just glued them onto it, and now I'm trimming, just cutting around them. That seemed like the easiest way to do it for me. And you know, I wasn't sure how to use these tags, and I thought they were really nice, but I didn't know how to use them. So this just essentially answered my questions. I thought it was a really great way to use those smaller items. And same thing for some ephemera that I have. I have some pretty small stickers that I was thinking I could use in this journal that I wouldn't otherwise be using in my regular size journal. Here I'm just adding some holes where the printables are showing that there would be a hole. And I'm just using my crocodile. I have a side tuck spot, so I'm just making a bit of a journaling card. Trying to see how big it should be. And that's the right size. And I am just adding some detail to the corners. And I'm also going to be gluing a little bit of a collage onto it just to make it more interesting, but I'm only doing that on one side of it, I believe, just to leave the other side for full journaling. Oh, I guess not. I'm just gluing all over it. Perfect. So we're just using some more of those smaller bits and pieces. And I'm just using my glue stick for this. This one is a pretty good glue stick. I do like it. But I ran out of it after this project, I think, and I had to start using one that I don't like as much in the meantime. But, you know, you gotta use what you have. I've trimmed off the excess and just re-pierced the corners, and I have that one pocket there that I put in a piece of cardboard in, just to remember that there was something there. And for that, I'm just gonna cut that longer piece in two and glue those two pieces onto one piece of paper. But I ended up, it's too wide, so I ended up having to trim it. I don't know what I was thinking. Sometimes we make mistakes, and you know, that's okay. Like, it's, you know, you think you made something right and then you realize that it's not the right size. So how to fix it? Well, you just trim it. Like, there's no other way around it, and that's okay. So here I'm just going to be folding that piece of paper back onto it, and I'm going to add the piece that I had trimmed off onto it to kind of cover all of it. So this way it's just a simple tag that I can really write onto. And as I've mentioned, I did have to trim it, but I'll put two little holes at the top to put a string through it. Alright, so now that I have these ones done, I'm just adding this last tiny journaling card, just collaging onto it. And my next step is going to be to create some tabs and some ruffles. I'm again just going to be using some scraps and also what I had left over from the piece of fabric that I made the cover with. And I'm just going to be adding them the same way that I would be adding into a regular size journal. I'm mainly using my stapler because I don't have a sewing machine, so that's plenty good. that's it for this tiny miniature journal. I'm so excited about this journal. I've already started journaling in it, and I filmed a process on how I am going to be using all of my scraps. So I really hope that you enjoyed this video. Here's a close-up of the final product, and I encourage you to create your own miniature journal to use up some of those paper scraps that maybe you're hoarding and you're not sure what to do with. If you like this video, leave me a thumbs up down below or let me know in the comments. I wish you all a really wonderful day, and I will talk to you in my next video.